Now he's back at it, but this time on LeBron James. Dr. J went on our guy, Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes has posted up podcasts and listed his all-time NBA teams, and the King did not make the cut. Take a look. His first team consists of players like Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, and the second team includes Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird. Dr. J gave his reason for leaving LeBron off both teams. Take a listen.
Well, you look at LeBron and, anybody he sort of picks with him to be so, playing with so many guys, he's the guy who has led the charge in terms of super teams being put together.
Yeah.
Joined now by Fox NBA analyst Slick Rick the Bucher, but Acho, you have a problem with Dr. J snubbing LeBron?
I absolutely do, but I have a problem with the why. If he just wanted to snub LeBron because Dr. J is an old head, I respect it. Like, old heads do what old heads do. You see who he got on the list. He had Jerry West, Wilt, Bill Russell, Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robinson. The youngest person on his first team is 82 years of age. So, if he wanted to just snub him because he's an old head, I'd be like, you know what? I tip my hat to you, OG. Yeah. You an OG. I can't argue with you. But his logic, his logic, Slick. You point one finger, you got to remember, you got 1, 2, 3 of them things pointing right back at you. And speaking of 3, remember, Dr. J's Sixers were 0-3 in the finals. And that's why he had to ring, call up NBA MVP Moses Malone before the 82-83 season. And then, only then, was Dr. J able to win his title. Remember, he couldn't get past the Lakers, which you could also argue was somewhat of a super team because of Kareem and Magic, but I ain't gonna go there.
You win.
But Dr. J couldn't get past a super team of his own, so what did he say? He said, man, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, different age of player empowerment. They didn't have nearly as much power then, but it's the same parallel to LeBron James. LeBron couldn't get past the Celtics. He loses in 08 to the Celtics in the semis, loses in 2010 to the Celtics in the semis. So what's LeBron do? Man, if you can't beat them, join him, because the Celtics had Kevin Garnett, 10-time All-Star, Ray Allen, 7-time All-Star, Paul Pierce, 5-time All-Star at the time of their joining forces. If I calculate that right, that sounds like a combined 22 All-Star games between their big 3. When LeBron formed his big 3, Wade, Bosh, Bron, that's only a combined 17 All-Star games between LeBron 6, D Wade 6, and Bosh is 5. So if we're really doing the math, not only did LeBron not start the whole super team thing, even in his own era, the Celtics did, and that's why LeBron had to bust a move, because he couldn't beat a super team or a big 3, so he had to go form one of himself. But Dr. J, come on, man. You was pointing that finger. You got 3 pointing back at you. You lost 3 times in the finals, so you had to get help from an MVP just to get you a ring.
Ooh.
Let's not forget our own history. Let's not forget our own flaws.
Oh.
Acho.
What happened, Slick?
If Dr. J had put himself on one of those teams, then you might have a case and you took all these different things that sound really good and they look really good and they make sense, and you put them all together. But you didn't make cookies. You didn't make cookies. You didn't make a cake. You just put a lot of stuff together in a mixing bowl and then said, eat it. I'm not going to eat it. No, I have absolutely no problem with what Dr. J put out there, because to your point, I mean, look, he doesn't have anybody beyond the 90s, anybody who was in their prime beyond the 90s on his teams. And he very well could have put himself on there ahead of Elgin Baylor, but he chose not to. This is the way all-time teams should be built. They should be built by eras, because the reality is the terms under which LeBron James has accomplished all that he's accomplished can't compare. You know, you said that player empowerment thing and you kind of snuck it in there and then you ran away from it. No, that's a huge difference maker here. They didn't have, whatever super teams were built back then, they were built in conjunction with the teams building them, and there was a ton more restriction when it came to it. Guys weren't giving up 10, 20, 30 million dollars in order to go play with somebody else because they were making 10, 20, 30 million dollars every year. So I think this is I have absolutely no problem with how Dr. J did it. And I really don't have a problem with his reason for why, because it makes sense in terms of the difference in the eras.
I have a problem with what Dr. J said. I loved your take, though, Slick. You really pushed back on Acho, but you're going to have to push back on both of us. And I weigh more than Acho, so this is going to be tough. Here's the thing. Dr. J, like Acho said, man, this is just old man speak. This is what we do. I'm an old man on this show, and I love what I love. His error was he loves his era. And that's the problem. You got to evolve, big dog, and Dr. J. Woo, you're about to lose your license right now because you went out there and said something that just doesn't add up. Let's start in your era, since you want to say it's not just about player empowerment. Let's start in your era. Was Bill Russell on this list? Yes, he was. Did Bill Russell play with 9 Hall of Famers one year? Yes, he did. By hook or crook, whether it's player empowerment or general manager doing his job, who gives the damn? It adds up to this is who you're playing with, a stacked deck. So by that reasoning, Acho gave you many more examples. I don't need to go into that. But just by that simple reasoning, you got a little issue in terms of your top 10. And that's my biggest issue. How dare you put LeBron James in a situation where right now he's not top 10 on your list, Dr. J, but he's in the GOAT conversation. Even if you hate LeBron James's game, I mean, you just like, it's despicable. Who cares? He's top 3 all time. You're not in the GOAT conversation unless you are. But he may be the best ever, but he's certainly not number 11 all the way through infinity. We can't go to that place. So I love all these guys for different reasons, but somebody got to go. I don't care what his age is, what the birth certificate says. There's no way that you can look at a basketball conversation or someone having a basketball conversation seriously if they look at you and say LeBron James is not in their top 10. Make it make sense, Slick Rick.
I will make it make sense. Number one, you immediately are saying that LeBron is in the GOAT conversation. Whose GOAT conversation? Is it Dr. J's GOAT conversation?
Oh, wow, we got a lot of
goats. Is it the old heads conversation? No, I'm telling you, if you got a room together of the guys that Dr. J mentioned and you got them together, you think they're sitting there going, yeah, you know what? We don't want LeBron on our teams, but he is one of the GOATs. They don't put him in that category. To your point about the player empowerment, this is the distinction, is that LeBron utilized his influence and his power to build a team in Miami. Then he utilized his influence to build a team in Cleveland, using up all the resources in Miami and then jumping ship. Going to Cleveland, utilizing all the resources, and then jumping ship. He's now in L.A., and I'm telling you, as soon as LeBron retires, they are out of resources. So it allows him to expend a great deal of resources in 3 different places that these guys didn't have. You go make a phone call and add one guy. It doesn't wreck the franchise going forward. And I'm not mad at LeBron for doing it. I mean, look, it's a different era. He's taken advantage of the circumstances to make what he's made. But if you ask me to compare what he's accomplished and say he's just tripled what these other guys have done, well, he's done it by moving to 3 different organizations and using up what they had. And I have to, if I'm an old head, I'm going to factor that in. And by the way, old heads, if old heads aren't going to stand up for old heads, who the hell is?
I'll stand up for old heads when they're in the right. But you know what? I follow the truth. And if you in the way, that's on you, big dog, because you got to speak the truth. Look, you made the argument that them old heads in the Hall of Fame committee made against T.O., which is if you don't like it or you don't like him, you're going to start hating on his achievements. Hey, bruh, that's not how I'm built. I don't give a damn what LeBron does in terms of draining the resources of the Lakers. I don't give a damn because they done cut many of players on the midnight hour with a one-way ticket. So we ain't going to get into this whole how you treat people conversation. We're going to get into what you did on that court. And if you did enough
It's not personal. It's business.
Well, guess what? The old heads are
I'm not mad at him for it, but the reality is he utilized those resources.
But the old heads are making it personal because we don't like how you did it. But you liked it when a general manager who you had no connection with did it for your teams in your era. We already talked about Moses Malone. We already talked about 9 Hall of Famers on one damn team, and you don't have a problem with that. But when LeBron makes a call to one of his friends, you got all the issues in the world. It's about achievement, not likability. That's my problem with these old
And here's the other thing, though, you said.